Okay, so first of all, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you all for coming out. We have a pretty small group here compared to what we had this morning, but I'm glad you all made it out anyways. We've probably got the best possible weather that we could have imagined, so this works out pretty good. First thing that I want to do is I want to introduce myself. My name is Jarod Olive. I'm the Fire Marshal for the City of Roswell Fire Department. If you want to just sit that there, it'd be fine. And over here to my right, I've got the Engine 5 company. They're going to be assisting, making sure that we have a safe operation. They're going to demonstrate actually how to put out the fire once we get it going. We have our lieutenant, driver, and a firefighter. And then I also have my deputy fire marshal, Chris Casey, over there. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the fire extinguisher and its components first. So I just want you guys to have, a general understanding of how it operates and, what the different components are. So we're going to take this first one here. This is a little small one. This is a 5-pound ABC rated fire extinguisher. This is the one that you guys are going to find inside all of your business offices. Every business in Roswell is required to have this as a minimum. This one here has an ABC rating, and all of our fires are going to be classified into specific letters. So we have the A is going to be for ordinary combustibles. That's your trash, paper, wood. And then we have a class B, which is going to be your flammable liquids, gasolines and fuels. Then a class C is going to be for all of your electrical appliances. And I think we can all understand for obvious reasons why they have them separated, that there's different extinguishers for each type of these things. And if you had a water extinguisher, for example, could put out ordinary combustibles like trash, paper, wood, can do that very easily. However, if you took that same water type extinguisher and you used it on an electrical fire, obviously we're going to have an electrical shock hazard. So when they take these and they rate them for all three, it means that there's a powder in here that is a non-conductive material. It has cooling properties, and obviously it can be used on all three of these fires here. So that's what we want, that's what we require throughout the whole city, is this as a minimum. You can also go up a little bit bigger into something like this. You see these sometimes in business offices. If you guys are out there on the aviation grounds, you guys are usually working with a little bit more hazardous stuff. You're probably going to end up having bigger extinguishers than these, more like some of the ones that we see over there to the right. And we'll go over those. We'll give you an opportunity to operate them and discharge them once we finish up with this. Just for you guys, though, to know, they all should have generally the same components. We're looking for this tag right here, which is a service record tag, and this has to be performed by a licensed, certified fire extinguisher company, okay? Some sort of fire protection company. What they're going to do is they're going to come out every year and they're going to evaluate this extinguisher. They do a general inspection of the exterior condition of the hose and all of its components, and then sometimes they'll even end up recharging it. They may open up the system, replace a seal or two, and then they put it all back together and they hang this tag on it. So this has to be done annually, and we need to make sure that you guys can see that there's a punch tag right there. This one says it was done in January of 2021. So it's not due to be serviced until January of 2022. Now on the back, they have a little area here, and this is the monthly inspections. The City of Roswell does not require you guys to do your own monthly inspections. However, your company may have those requirements. And so they may designate an employee or two to go around and check and inspect these extinguishers. And what you're doing on that is it's not as extensive as what the certified technician's going to do. This is just a little general. I'm going to check the overall appearance of it. I'm going to check this gauge right here and make sure that it's in the green. And I'm going to make sure that it has this inspection tag on it and all of its labels and everything are intact. The labeling is really important because, they're required to put on their directions on how to use it. I don't think anybody actually takes the time to read the directions when there's a fire, but just for liability reasons, they have to display that. So you guys have to make sure that they're all intact. The other thing that we like to do is we like to turn the extinguisher upside down, and you kind of give it a little pat on the butt, and that's going to mix up the components inside. It's got a dry powder in there. And it pretty much just makes sure it's not getting compacted and it separates it a little bit. I've got a little drawer over there of some of the dry powder that's in these things, the chemical, and when I leave it in my truck, it'll drive around and just the vibrating will make it compact to where it's basically solid. I can turn it upside down and it's still sitting on the top, upside down, not moving. As soon as I give it a little knock, all of it falls down, it gets real loose and turns almost into a liquid. And I'll show you guys that here in a second. But I'll finish up going over this components. When you guys are looking at these systems, you just want to kind of make sure that they have this little tamper seal on them. Sometimes they're tagged with the date that they were installed. But basically, you just want that on there just to make sure that nobody's accidentally discharged them, nobody's messing with them. Because the important thing on these is once they've been discharged, even if it's just for 1 second, it ruins that seal and it will continue to leak by. So they're a one-time use only. You got to inspect them all the time. Every once in a while, when somebody does a service on these, they can kind of mess up the seal placement. They might get something dirty in there, and it will leak some of the propellant by. When it does that, it's going to drop this gauge. So you might find it in this exact condition that it's in with the tamper seal, fresh tag on it, yet you look at the gauge and it's dropped down to 0. And that's just because it had a little leak somewhere. All you have to do is call the company on the tag, get them to come out, they'll swap it out. They'll replace the seal and get it ready to go. So now I'll go over this one here. I've already taken the top off, and obviously you don't want to do this while it's charged because it's going to be under a lot of pressure, but this one's already been discharged, and I just kind of wanted to show you what the internal components are, what makes it up. So it's just got this long tube here, and then this big hollow cylinder, and then they fill it up pretty dang full with that chemical agent in there. Then they take this nozzle off, and it just screws on. And then they fill it up with a propellant, usually a nitrogen, some sort of propelling agent. Then they reassemble it all, put their tag on it. This one shows that they actually did a full service on it. And you can only put this tag on if you've taken it all the way apart. So that's kind of important to know. So if you see this, it means that they've disassembled the system. The other important thing to remember is how these things are carried. This right here is the actual carry handle. This here is the lever that will discharge it, the activation lever right there. So whenever we're going to approach a fire to extinguish it, we always want to start pulling the pin first, sometimes even before it comes off the wall. If this is mounted on a wall or in a cabinet or something like that, we always recommend that you grab it, secure it, and pull this pin as hard as you can. It's going to break this tamper seal, pull this pin out, and it's going to allow this lever to depress on this little button here. So this little pin is the only thing that's keeping it from actuating right now. So if we can use this as our carry handle, make sure that this pin is pulled, then we grab this nozzle, and then we can squeeze the trigger, and we're going to be aiming at the base of the fire in a sweeping left to right motion. The reason we're aiming at the base of the fire is because the fire needs 3 things to survive, right? We all know what those are. It's heat, fuel, and oxygen. Once all 3 of those things come together, it creates a chemical chain reaction. And that chemical chain reaction produces a lot of radiation and heat. So the fire that we all recognize, the flames, that's all just radiation, like a radiation waves emitting from that chemical chain reaction. So if we were to spray an extinguisher at the flames, it's just going to go right through, right? So what we really want to do is we want to cover the base of the fire. And we want to separate the heat and the fuel, or the oxygen and the fuel. And the good thing about that little yellow chemical that we had, that thing has, it's got a cooling, yeah, would you pass that around, buddy? That thing has a cooling agent, a cooling property, has a smothering property, has an absorbent property. So it's tackling multiple different aspects of the fire, and it's going to extinguish it. If we removed any one of those things, it would put the fire out. If you guys shake it around, you can see how fluid it is, you know. And if we sat there and let it sit too long, it would just sit there and cake up. It'd be pretty solid looking. So, pretty neat, huh? Yeah, so that's what we need to remember, is that there's different methods to taking out that fire. Like I said, usually it's either removing the heat source, removing the fuel source, or removing the oxygen. And we talked about the classifications, right? We had A, B, C. Well, there's a couple of more. And you guys being on the aviation side, you might deal with a Class D. Class D is for combustible metals. And so we have those on a lot of the engine components for the airplanes. We have them on the brakes. So that's why we have a lot of those bigger wheeled extinguishers you guys might see on there that has a little D with a star on it. And that's specifically for the combustible metals. And they all have different materials and agents inside them. So these are the dry chemical ones that has the little yellow powder in there. We also might have a CO2 extinguisher. CO2 extinguishers would be good on Class A, Class Bs, and if they were used on Class C, it still kind of creates like a conductive atmosphere, because it's like a gas that we're putting out there, and it's got kind of a little bit of a liquid property to it. So you actually run the risk of electrical shock. So they're not really rated for Class C fires. But just what I would recommend is that you guys get familiar with the extinguisher that's in your area. So wherever you're working at on a regular basis, know that extinguisher. You can pull it off the wall if it's got a strap mount, if it's just got a hook that it's hanging on, maybe it's in a cabinet. Some of them even might have a glass that you have to break. Just get familiar with it and look it over. Get comfortable, because if you're in this situation where there's an actual fire, obviously we're going to be stressed out. The adrenaline's going to be pumping, and we're not going to be thinking as clearly. So I think it's good that we get as familiar with these things as possible as we can while we're in a controlled environment, and that way you're a little bit more confident when there's an actual fire. With that said, I think we want to go ahead and get this thing lit off so we're not out here in the rain. Guys, you ready?